How can average working citizens like us? How can we reform our unjust financial system to erode the wealth and power of big banks, traditional corporations, and the super rich, and redistribute that wealth and power to average working citizens without relying on politicians or regulations? This is the question we ask on the Crowd Effect podcast. I am your host, Paul Lovejoy, activist investment advisor and founder of Stakeholder Enterprise. Home ownership. This is the American dream, right? However, it is getting more difficult for your average working person to become a homeowner. Now, I pulled some statistics on the average home price in the United States. This is from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, which tracks home prices in the United States. In the third quarter of 2020, the average price of a U.S. home was 397,800, around $400,000. Exactly 2 years later, the average price was 547,800, so almost $550,000. All right, that is a $150,000 increase or 27% in 2 years. So let's compare that to the average increase in salary for those same 2 years. Well, I got this from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it says that on average in the United States, wages and salary increased in those 2 years 12%, which is significant. But it just doesn't compare with 27%. And so, looking at that statistic, it's easy to see how this owning a home is just getting more and more out of reach for your average working person. All right. That's just um, the cost of a home. That's just one barrier. There's other barriers. Depending on where you live, um, the average, like I live in Hawaii now, and the average price of a home here is $1 million. And in the last 2 years, uh, the average annual salary increase is way below the national average here in Hawaii. 12% nationally over the last 2 years. Here, we're looking more like 7%. Um, in other places, it's even worse. California, the average annual salary in the last 2 years has only gone up 2%. With home prices, the average price of a home in California is $716,000. Compare that to 2 years ago, it was around $600,000. So it's just not keeping up. Now, let's say, I lived in the Oklahoma City metro for 6 years. And there, it's still reasonable for your average working person to own a home. Um, the the annual increase in salary is above the national average there. So there are exceptions depending on where you live. Your geography. It still is somewhat achievable. But if you don't live in Oklahoma or Idaho or Wyoming, and in some of these other places, then yeah, it's going to be difficult for you to become a homeowner just on the sheer cost of it. There are other factors involved here. A credit score. To be able to get a mortgage, you got to have good credit. So that means you needed to have a good financial education background in the first place to understand what it takes to pay off your credit cards, to not get in trouble with debt and loans and things of this nature, which it's not taught in school. And if you weren't lucky enough to have parents or an education to show you how to properly manage a personal budget, it's very easy to find yourself in debt, then having a poor credit score, and then trying to claw your way out of this situation. So yeah, that's an incredible challenge just to get a mortgage. Then, if you actually have a good enough credit score, then you take on this massive debt. An average home price in the United States, $550,000. Um, if you put 20% down, $110,000. You're still taking out a $440,000 loan mortgage. That's huge. That's a lot of money. Um, and let's talk about saving up $110,000. That is not a very smart financial move. Putting away that amount of money into a savings account where you're lucky if you're getting a percent, maybe half a percent of interest. So your money is just sitting there, um, not really earning any interest. It's losing value because of inflation. I mean, it, it's not it's not a smart way to build wealth. I know traditionally home ownership is the way to build wealth, but it's not the case anymore. It's um, with inflation, with the salary not keeping up with the cost of homes, these other factors. Building wealth through home ownership is a terrible idea. Um, yeah, you're taking on this massive debt, saving up a really large down payment, all very challenging. Um, Now, if you own income producing property that can pay for all of the expenses like a mortgage loan and the insurance and the taxes, and you still have enough left over, now yeah, the appreciation is great and you're getting income. If you're just a regular homeowner who owns their home they live in, yes, it's getting appreciation as I just talked about. It's going up in value, but it you can't use any of that value until you sell your home. Then it becomes an asset. Until then, it's a total liability owning a home because you're paying money out of your pocket every month just to just to live there, which you would be doing with rent. True, but it's not an asset unless you sell it. Um, and oftentimes you can find rent for cheaper than a mortgage, especially in some of these areas where it's very difficult to own your own home. You can find rents that are a lot more affordable. I guess you could refinance your home and take money out, that equity out, but then you're increasing your debt, which is um, typically not a great thing to do. Um, so home ownership is a difficult task for your average working person, and even if you can afford your home, it's a liability until you sell it. Um, Now, so what do we do about this? This is a huge problem. If you and prior to 2015, there was no solution. There wasn't any solution that average working people could do to change this. So prior to 2015, wealthy people they had a solution for this. They were allowed to pool their money together to buy apartment buildings, to buy a whole collection of single family rental homes, um, industrial buildings, office buildings, retail centers. Uh, these are you had to be something called an accredited investor, meaning you had to make either $200,000 a year for the last 2 years as a single person, $300,000 a year for the last 2 years as a couple, or have $1 million cash in the bank. You couldn't That $1 million couldn't be equity in your home, that you have, specifically for the reasons that I just talked about. It's not liquid. You can't. It's not an asset unless you sell it. So if you didn't, and accredited investors, this is just 2%, the top 2% of U.S. income earners. So it created a system where the rich were getting richer, and the general public was locked out. We couldn't. We didn't have a solution. 2015 is when the private market, which this is accredited investors were allowed to do this, buying, pooling their money and buying these apartment buildings and single family home collection and all that other stuff. In 2015, this private market was deregulated, allowing the general public access via crowdfunding. So this game changing deregulation happened for the general public. When the first real estate crowdfunding platforms came out, the minimum investment requirements were $5,000, which is uh, achievable for many average working people, um, but not for everyone. As time has gone on, these platforms have improved. New ones have popped up, and it's gone down to $500, to $100, to $10. Now today, there are credible, established real estate crowdfunding site where all you need is $1, just $1. And with real estate crowdfunding, you're not taking on any debt, zero debt. You don't have to deal with it. And you can access your money. You're getting income from the rents, from owning this real estate. So you can access your money. And the now that the general public can crowdfund into the private market, it erodes. That money would have gone to wealthy accredited investors. It would have gone to institutional investors, but now it goes to the general public because we now have this access, and we can erode that wealth from the institutional investors. And the more people who crowdfund, then the more it will be eroded, and it allows just regular people to grow wealth, and not just from the income from the rents received, but also from the appreciation, which is that what why people own homes, want to be homeowners, is that appreciation. Well, you can still get appreciation from an income producing property that you don't live in. So this is a huge game changer, and we're living in a time of history where we have this ability to redistribute this wealth without any government intervention, without any conflict, and we're cooperating. We're working together. We're doing this democratically, and we're sharing in the wealth. It's an incredible time to be alive and to experience this. I feel so lucky and privileged to be able to share this news with people, and to be a part of this in my own way. Real estate crowdfunding is truly an incredible democratic vehicle of change. It can change not just our financial system, but individual lives within our financial system. So that's all I'm going to be talking about today. My name is Paul Lovejoy. I am a crowd investor, and I see you are one too. If you'd like to know how to reform our unjust financial system democratically, without protesting or divisive political action, go to stakeholderenterprise.com.